Welcome to the Township Council Workshop, Monday, August 14th, 2023. This meeting is now called to order. After the salute of the flag, please remain standing for a moment of silence for Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who recently passed. Councilman Murphy, lead us in a salute to the flag, please.
Sure.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Mrs. Kraus, please read the statement of public notice.
Take notice that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with NJSA 10:4-8 and NJSA 10:4-10 as follows. Notice of the meeting was prominently posted on the bulletin board at the municipal building located at 225 Main Street, Little Falls, New Jersey on January 5th, 2023. Copy of the notice was mailed to the North Jersey Herald and News and the Record on the same date. Additionally, a copy of the notice was filed in the office of the township clerk on said date. A link and a telephone number to join the meeting virtually can be accessed on the township website at www.lfnj.com. Electronic provisions have been established for the public to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting.
Thank you. At this time, please call the roll.
Councilmember Patel.
Present.
Councilmember Murphy.
Present.
Councilmember Hablitz. Councilmember Vanchery.
Present.
Council President Scoba.
Present. At this time, I'm going to ask the mayor to take the floor. We have an individual here on staff that needs to get back to work. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to ask our dispatcher, John Conti, to join me up here. For those of you that don't know, Dispatcher John Conti has been with the township as a full-time dispatcher since 2013. He is also a very active member of our fire department here in Little Falls. Dispatcher Conti joined the fire department actually in 2009, and he began part-time dispatching that very same year. He was a lieutenant of Company 2, and he was hired as a full-time dispatcher in 2013. He is EMS, EMD, and 911 certified. He is firefighter 1 certified, and he has an ICS certification. We now have a full complement of dispatchers here in Little Falls. Now that we have a full complement of dispatchers, part of the way we're looking to run our dispatch center is having 2 full-time senior dispatchers. We have 1 already appointed, and Dispatcher Conti will now be the 2nd full-time senior dispatcher in Little Falls, who will help oversee and run day-to-day operations in our dispatch center. I want to congratulate you because effective 2 days from now, August 16th, officially you'll be the senior dispatcher here in Little Falls. And I want to thank you for all of your hard work and everything that you do to keep us running from every single day. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we have a motion to open the meeting to public for general matters and agenda items. Moved by Councilman Vanchery, second by Councilman Havelitz. Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Kraus.
Anyone wishing to address the Township Council may do so through the Council President. It is preferred if you give your name and address for the record. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. However, if appropriate, you may be granted additional time in the sole discretion of the Council President. Members of the public who have joined the meeting virtually and desire to provide comment shall raise their virtual hand in the Zoom application. The meeting moderator will cue the members of the public that wish to provide comment, and the Council President will recognize them in order. Members of the public who have joined the meeting by calling in must press *6 to mute and unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. Members of the public who have joined the meeting via the Zoom application must click the reactions icon and then the raise hand icon. Once the process is complete, we will return to the regular order of business.
Thank you. The floor is now open. Floor is open. You have to approach the podium, sir.
Sorry, I wanted to talk.
I'm
David
sorry, for
Salvatore.
the record, your name, you don't need to do your address, just your name.
David Salvatore.
Thank you.
I wanted to bring up the topic of the cannabis that's going on in town right now. And I had several questions because it seems as though you're not going to have a public, other than this, a public sort of opinion on it. And it seems to be a very complicated decision. Obviously, it's a growing industry, but after reading up on it, there are several things that are not regulated about it. And one of them, we can start with employees. So the idea of having people being able to buy marijuana, whatever you call it, in town, it would be on, I guess, Route 46, where the Burger King is currently. Is that the plan?
Yes, sir. The plan would be only to allow it in the business district if it was to pass.
So in that location, because
Correct.
obviously you want it not near.
I'm sorry?
Obviously, you don't want it near residential.
Correct.
And I say that only because it seems to be, when you complain about pot, people say, oh, well, it's the same thing as liquor. But if someone's having a cocktail in their home, you don't smell it in the next home. And you do, and this affects obviously my industry, which is real estate. It's obviously not a good thing for real estate either to say that there is a pot dispensary in your town. But reading up on the topic, it seems as though there's some things that are not yet standardized. One of them is called WIRE. It's the Workplace Impairment Recognition Expert. It seems as though employees in these stores, and that's all you need to do is look at, I guess their name is Aspire, the one that's in Montclair who wants to potentially move here. Their Yelp reviews are quite negative when it comes to their employees. It's obviously, I have no experience in it, but according to the Yelp reviewers, the employees seem as high as a kite. So if they're high, how are they going to monitor who they're selling these things to? So I'm looking at sort of a plan as to who is exactly going to be in this facility. The other thing, and as far as the government is concerned, New Jersey has not provided any standards or a certification process for WIRE. So it's basically an open-ended, it's a pretty title, but it doesn't actually say anything as to what it's supposed to do. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, will this location ever have what they call a consumption lounge? Obviously, it was a restaurant at one point. So will there be a consumption lounge in this location?
Right now, the council is going to be entertaining this evening if we're going to pass retail cannabis. As far as the actual inside establishment, that would be if the applicant was approved and what plans would be put forth.
Sort of trying to just asking questions to
Right.
sort of.
I would
stop the horse
myself,
from
if it
leaving
was
the
to go
barn.
forward, I don't see a consumption lounge in the future. However,
Well, I think.
nothing has been put forth.
Right, it would
So-
obviously be something that
Right.
I would hope would be prohibited because it's on a highway.
Mhm.
The next thing is, how are we monitoring the actual sales when it comes to dollars? Because the Safe Banking Act has not been passed. It passed Congress once and it was turned down by the Senate. So most banks do not want to do business with marijuana related industry retailers or businesses. So when you're dealing with a real bank, you obviously can, ask for financial records. How is the town going to be compensated for this business? And what type of oversight, like who's doing the accounting? Because the numbers are quite hefty. And what percentage is going to the town? Like, are we going through all this for what?
Okay. That's a great question, sir. If we just circle back to your first comment about first of all, does the council members have any comments before I take the floor? Okay. Your comment was about decreased values in real estate, and you mentioned that that is your profession. However, from what I found out when I researched, that does not seem to be the case. As if you go to the towns of Rochelle Park and in Montclair and others established where these businesses have been established, it had no effect on real estate. Matter of fact, if we go to our neighboring town of Montclair, I don't think you could say that affected Montclair's real estate by any imagination. As far as the employees, that's going to be up to the owners of the establishment to regulate their employees. That's, you know, if the employees come in high, that's up to the business owners to take care of that. No different than if a restaurant had someone coming in who was high or intoxicated. So that would be up to the establishment. Going to your question about banking, you are correct in what you're saying. Counselor, as far as these establishments, they exist. So where do they bank that they still could be credible because they're doing business and they're paying their taxes? You have a comment on that? Mr. Kusia?
Yes. The law provides that the chief financial officer is responsible for calculating what the 2% tax would be.
Well,
And
Mr. Kusia, before that, I think the question was
I'm
more
gonna-
about
I'm
the
gonna-
banking itself.
I'm gonna get there. What the 2% tax would be. The other part of it is that we're responsible to make sure that it is deposited into a legal bank. At this point in time, it has to be, because of the federal laws, it has to be a New Jersey incorporated bank. From my research, Valley Bank seems to be the bank that's stepping forward into all of these cannabis because they are a legal New Jersey bank. So that's where the dollars seem to be going for all of these cannabis businesses. They are also required to report to the state based upon sales. And that's done quarterly. So we would rely on the information that goes to the state to determine that they are reporting appropriately. And that's the way we would calculate the 2%.
So let's just focus back on that question that the resident has as far as what the township is getting financially if we allow this establishment to come in. Now, this is going to be hypothetical because we haven't done it yet. It only could be based on other establishments in other communities, what we researched and found out. And Mr. Kuchar, can you comment on the numbers, what the potential township would get from if we allow this establishment in town?
The estimates that are made in the licensing process are close to about $500,000 on the first business. It's a substantial revenue.
So I think my point with real estate is not so much as to the real estate value, but its effect on the community and neighbors. So certainly being in commercial and residential real estate, I would never open a store personally next to a cannabis store. I think that's where this opens up into more than just a financial question. So I would have hoped that there would be more townspeople here tonight who possibly would be concerned, but let's see if they're going to chime in. It's just something that I know a lot of towns have struggled with and many have passed. And money is money, but what kind of problems is this going to bring potentially? Because certainly you don't have to have a security guard if you're selling cupcakes or Burger King. But you do have to have an, I would imagine, an off-duty police officer on scene to, this is obviously not a typical business. It brings problems.
Okay, we appreciate your comments. The establishments that I took a look at have law enforcement on the scene. And the law enforcements that I've spoke to and Mr. Vinny Controne, you also, would you like to comment? He spoke to another establishment that was, what town was that in, sir?
That was in Rochelle Park.
Rochelle Park.
So- What I could tell you is I personally spoke to the police chief there, where I was a former chief in a neighboring community, who had nothing but positive things to say. He actually went in and timed each sale And, to ensure that there was a smooth operation, to ensure it didn't affect traffic, they did traffic studies. They hired off-duty police officers in the establishment to make sure there were no issues. And he highly recommended it from a law enforcement perspective, that there were no issues that the town had to deal with. And it seemed to be a great way for the town to get revenues and to use those revenues to enhance the community and have that money available.
I think that's obviously the major drive here is revenue, but I think there's other issues that I'm sure people would love to voice their opinions about. So
Does the council members
Thank
have any any comments? Mayor, would you like to chime in here?
Sure, I can tell you that, obviously, this is not something that we are trying to hide about. Putting a class 5 license in Little Falls from day one has been something that we've said we want to wait and see how it affects other towns and what the impacts are in other towns before bringing it here to Little Falls. And we were very clear about that almost 3 years ago to the day when we introduced our first ordinance that permitted class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 licenses, but prohibited class 5 licenses here in Little Falls. It's now been 3 years since it's been legal here in New Jersey. There have been a number of cannabis operations that have opened since, actually dozens upon dozens of them that have, some of them originally being medicinal, now many of them being recreational. And in consultation with our assistant business administrator and other police chiefs, again, from the police side, from the safety perspective, there are no concerns that have been raised as red flags by any of these municipalities that have class 5 licenses and areas where cannabis can be distributed. As far as your question about a consumption lounge, I personally am highly opposed to there being a consumption lounge. If there is going to be an operation like this here in Little Falls, I think people should, again, at least from the beginning, start with pre-orders, see how those move, see if it should be open to the potential of walk-in customers or not. I know there are many places that prohibit walk-ins and you are required to pre-order. It creates a very efficient operation where people walk in, they show their ID, they go through the necessary steps, they've prepaid for their products, and once they confirm their identity, they are literally handed a sealed bag that they walk out to their car with and leave. There are a lot of places that are like that are functioning with a very high rate of success, with all of the safety and all of the concerns that people have raised being alleviated. And again, that's why we didn't have one here for the first 3 years that cannabis was legal in New Jersey. But after review, after seeing all of the other businesses in the state of New Jersey and how successful they've been on all fronts, not just the financial front, which is certainly a consideration, but it is not the consideration for bringing it here to Little Falls. I don't see downsides to it. In fact, I believe that in many polls that have been done about cannabis, one of the highest responses that people prefer to have cannabis distribution centers in their downtown, not on the outskirts of their town, not on highways, on places that are easily accessible to them, that are actually most easily accessible to them, where they are comfortable driving, where they have easy accessibility. So to say that this is something that is terrible for a town, that decreases values, that people wouldn't want to open next to, I don't know that that's necessarily true. And listen, I will tell you, and I've said this from day one, when the actual vote in November of 2019 came up for the legalization of cannabis, I was opposed to it. And I've said that since it happened. I was publicly opposed to it. But now that it is legal, now that it is permitted, now that we've seen operations operating for over 3 years now that we've been able to see whether or not there are any positive or negative benefits or detriments to municipalities, it to me has become very apparent that the positive benefits of these retail establishments outweigh any negative detriments that there may be. My Facebook post alone, where I'm sure you're very well aware, nobody is shy to comment in the negative and oppose something that I post about, had almost all positive responses to this being the case here in Little Falls when I posted. So to say that this is a bad thing for Little Falls, I think is maybe a little bit misconstrued. I understand again that some people may not want it here, and there's certainly some that don't. But I think marijuana passed in the state of New Jersey with people in favor of it, almost an 85% vote. Little Falls, I don't recall the exact numbers, had a fairly high percentage in favor of legalizing marijuana. I think the other concern that I've heard is if it's going to be legal, I don't want to have to drive, and this is not me speaking, but again, other people that I've heard, I don't want to have to drive to Montclair. I don't want to have to drive to Patterson. I don't want to have to drive to Elmwood Park. I don't want to have to drive to all of these other municipalities to get something if I can get it right here with convenience. And if that's the case, if it's going to be the same amount of people or the same number of people utilizing it, does it really matter if we make it more convenient for them here in Little Falls or if they have to drive further? In fact, I would argue it's easier and better to be closer to home for people to get it than it would to be further. There's probably more potential for people wanting to use it before getting home if they're further away than if they're closer. So again, I acknowledge your concerns. I don't know, and I have certainly not heard that employees of dispensaries are high while working. In fact, I've heard just the opposite. I've heard that all of the employees of these places are extremely professional, that they are very knowledgeable in the area, that they have great personalities, that they are very friendly, that they make the experience a very pleasurable one for people. Not to mention, a majority of the people that are utilizing marijuana are actually not the demographic that I assumed would be walking in and out of these stores. The demographic of people walking into retail establishments, and this is going to offend some people here, is an older demographic than I expected to be using it. I thought it would be a lot of kids. I thought it would be a younger generation. I thought it would be people who were just turning 21 and in their young 20s, and a younger generation looking to utilize it. But it's not that. In fact, just the opposite of that. It's an older generation that's looking to use it, that wants to have it here conveniently. And again, right now, just because this is up for an introduction tonight, the purpose of introducing an ordinance is to ask for comment, is to generate townspeople, opinions coming in. And I hope to have more opinions from people because I want opinions and I want concerns to be addressed. And by introducing an ordinance, just because it's introduced doesn't mean that it needs to be adopted. If it turns out that that should not be the case and the council has reasons to consider that, then they very well may, and they could decide to not move forward with the adoption of an ordinance. But introducing an ordinance, as we have done in the past, just literally opens the door for discussion. And that's what I think this is on the agenda for this evening.
Counselor, do you want to add something?
Thank you, Council President. I was just going to say exactly what the mayor said about the comment regarding opportunity for the public input. Obviously, with all your ordinances, you have the second reading, which is the time for the public hearing. And then obviously at all your meetings, you have your public comment. So both legally and also just generally by your rules of order, you have public comment at all of those occasions. I know there was an issue brought about the consumption lounges. That's the latest iteration of the CRC cannabis regulation commission. In order to do a consumption lounge, that entity would need not only to get a specific state permit to do that as a separate operation. So the consumption lounge is not, the retail is one license they have to get. The consumption lounge is a second license they have to get and qualify for from the state. And they would have to get municipal approval when that applicant comes before the community to open up an operation. They would have to get municipal approval not only for the retail establishment, but to get a separate municipal approval for the consumption lounge. So in those circumstances, in essence, that entity would need to get an additional second layer of approvals. So it's not that one is necessarily associated with the other. It's two that have to get separate approvals. And I'll know if at this point, I don't think that issue has come to a head yet, but I'm just saying procedurally, that's how that works, just for the information of the council.
Thank you, counsel. Does the council have any comments, questions?
President, I may,
Yes,
I just
Councilman Murphy.
thank you. And I know we have public comments at these workshop meetings and at regular meetings, but I do have to disagree on a level that I do feel that this needs to go to the residents with ample time for them to think of questions and concerns. when this is presented to us, and Mayor, you had brought this up on the April 17th meeting, that council would have a lot of discussion on this. You had mentioned that there was some interest in potentially doing a town hall, that there would be, you were going to even call each council member. None of that has happened. This is the first the council is ever discussing this. So I had asked when we first found out about this, even the council had found out about this on Friday, when we got the agendas, that this would be on here. There are benefits to this. There are concerns with this. Residents may be for it. Residents may be 100% against it, but I think we need to give them the opportunity to at least speak and say that. We've done town halls for making streets one ways. We've done town halls for making parking lots. This is a controversial topic, as you had just alluded to, and I think we have to give residents that time to do that. I understand this is just an introduction tonight, but an introduction starts the time for the regular meeting to happen where we vote on the ordinance. And so I think 2 weeks, and I'm sure going to ask as many people as I can, but I got a ton of calls today asking why this is going on, and they felt that this is just coming out. Again, I understand that it was brought up 5 months ago, but that discussion was to be that council would have discussion on it, that there would be looking to have town halls, that you would have discussions with us. So my request would really be to table this. And I would like, when it comes up, I will be motioning for that we'd be able to table this. And I'm not asking for a year. I'm not asking for 6 months. I'm asking for a month, a couple months, and a company that stands and basically up the April 17th meeting, to make exceptional profit on this. I think to push it off a month or 2 months or 3 months, even at the max, is not a lot to ask for.
Thank you, Councilman Murphy. Are there any other comments from council? Mr. Salvatore, do you have any other questions?
That's all. I just wanted to, one last comment, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right. So I think if everyone in town wants to legalize prostitution, I don't think that's a good idea either. I mean, I think when I was brought up, this was considered a drug. This is not something that is quote unquote healthy for you, even though it's spun into this medicinal category. And if you look online, they have all sorts of things that make it sound like it's a version of nothing but cake. I mean, there's lemonade, chewables, and all these other things. It's like, do we really want to deaden the population to the point that they don't know anything of what's going on? Are they really in that much pain? What is going on with people that they need this? So I find it rather remarkable. And my point of view is that it should have never been legalized. It's obviously a little late for that, but I don't want it in my town. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Crucia, is anyone in the chat?
No, there is not, sir.
Is there anyone in the council chambers that'd like to come forth? See no one else come forth. Can I have a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
It's moved by Councilman Vanchery, second by Councilman Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We will be removing ordinance 1470, will not be heard tonight. Mayor?
Thank you, Council President. The first item before I get to my actual agenda this evening is, I know I mentioned last meeting that there would be a tax reduction in this upcoming tax year. And I am very pleased to announce that there will in fact be a tax reduction as a result of the 2023 budget, which residents will see over the next several tax quarters until the next anticipated tax bill comes out. So for the next several tax bills that residents see, they will in fact be lower than their prior tax bills. It will be a reduction of about $60 on a home that's assessed at $400,000. So there will be, again, a slight reduction, which again is unheard of in this era. I am also thrilled to announce that in 7 budgets, taxes in Little Falls have gone up about 2.8% in total. And that's not a per year increase. That is a total increase over a 7-year period. Again, it's almost a 0.5% increase each year. With the way that inflation has been affecting all of us, keeping taxes stable has been a major priority of mine and a goal that I have set out to achieve from the get-go. And I think we have been able to do so by increasing our tax base, increasing the ratables here in town, ensuring that our taxes remain stable. Next is a streetscape update. For some of you, you may have seen driving down Main Street that PSE&G has begun to install some of the light poles in what we were referring to as section 2 of the streetscape. It's the area really between Union Ave and along all of the apartments here. There are brownstones and Park Lane apartments. The light poles are looking great. They are a great addition to our downtown. Unfortunately, we're still waiting for PSE&G to return in order to run all of the wires here in town to all of them and actually get them lit up. So hopefully they will be here soon to complete that. And hopefully soon they will also be doing the other 2 sections of Main Street, everything from Maple up to the brownstone and Park Lane apartments there. So that is on their agenda and hopefully moving in the right direction. Also, the planters have now been filled. They're looking good with thanks to our DPW who have come in and really planted some beautiful flowers. Moving forward, there's going to be some discussions about what actually goes in the planters as potentially year-round type of plantings, and then supplementing the year-round plantings with some other decorative plants throughout the year. I think it will really bring the entire streetscape together. Adding more greenery, adding some smaller trees into the planters might be one of the ways to go about that. So it is something that we are looking to accomplish here in town. And again, I want to thank the DPW for working so hard to get all of those plants in and having it look beautiful in our downtown. As far as the agenda this evening, there are several items that I will report on. The first being the resolutions authorizing the affordability assistance grants with renters of affordable housing units. And that is resolutions A and B. And we will have to do this for each and every individual renter who is receiving affordability assistance with their units. And what we are looking to do is to pay their first month's rent in order from our housing fund. So this will not be any impact whatsoever on taxpayers. This is what the money that developers have paid in the past to get out of having to build their co-obligations will be utilized for. It is one of the options for the municipality, and it accomplishes a number of things. One is it allows them to take their money and infuse it back into the economy, which I think is a tremendous benefit, and it allows them to help get set up in their new apartments. So again, there will be absolutely zero tax impact to the residents here in Little Falls as a result of this. Are there any questions as far as resolutions A and B? All right, the next item is the resolution rescinding resolution D, and awarding contract for demolition of the houses along Stanley Street. Unfortunately, the original first bidder did not comply with all requirements of the bid, and they are going to be disqualified as a bidder. And we are then choosing the next lowest bidder on this project to demolish the homes on Stanley Street. And this is for the parking lot improvements that will be happening at the former PNC parking lot here in downtown Little Falls. Any other questions on that item? All right, the next item is a resolution authorizing the insertion to the 2023 municipal budget, a special item of revenue and appropriation titled Stormwater Assistance Grant. And it is literally as it sounds. It is adding grant funds to our budget because we were awarded a grant in that item. Any questions on that? All right, moving on to the next item. It is a resolution, so I will handle items number 4 and 5 on the agenda together. It's resolutions authorizing change orders for the downtown streetscapes in both sections 4 and sections 3. As I've explained, typically with big projects, there are sometimes change orders that come along with them. This is a very nominal change order of just several $1,000s with what was a over $1.5 million project. And as contractors move along their work, they end up running into snafus once in a while that were not originally anticipated. And that's what these were. And there will be some change orders, although I do believe that there will be other future change orders that are actually reimbursing the municipality or reducing the cost of the actual project. So we should actually be seeing this back in some other areas. Any questions with items number 4 and 5? All right, item number 6 on the agenda is the resolution authorizing the transfer of Little Falls General Assistance Program to Passaic County Board of Social Services. This is something that the municipality has always provided as an in-house service to individuals. It was assistance for individuals who required social services. The county has an operation that is much larger than the operation that is ongoing here in Little Falls, only helping 5 or 6 individuals on an average annual basis. And what this will do is transfer this to the county and allow them to operate our social services. moving forward. Are there any questions with respect to item number 6? All right, item number 7 is a resolution renewing a liquor license, and that is just as it sounds and something that is done annually. Any questions on item 7? All right, we have bond ordinance, or I guess really ordinance number 1467, amending the Township Code, Chapter 136 noise. And as some of you may be aware, there have been concerns that have been raised over noise specifically related to construction, and allowing for some periods of time where there's breaks in the noise is something that I believe is appropriate, especially on commercial sites. And what we did here is prohibit work on Sundays in some zones as far as the commercial zones, and it's going, but we don't want to impede homeowners' abilities to have small projects in their homes done either. So this ordinance, again, is being introduced for additional discussion. If anybody has any comments in the future about noise and about construction here in Little Falls.
To clarify, this is not a bond ordinance. Okay, clarification for the
Just
record.
made the correction, Council President.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And item number 9, are there any questions with respect to noise? All right. Item number 9 is ordinance 1468, amending the Township Code 33 for cannabis. And that was the one that was just discussed at length. I know the council's had an opportunity to review it. Are there any questions specifically related to item number 9?
I have a question, Council President.
Through the floor, Councilman Patel.
I don't know if this is going to be best handled by Mr. Kusha or not, but the current ordinance has subsection F, right, which allows certain applications to come before the governing body so that we can ensure that if it were to pass, certain things like the manner or the times of operation, things of that nature would come before council. That has been removed in the amended ordinance. So it's initially actually just seeking clarification on why that is being removed.
The original ordinance, remember, we were all breaking ground when we did this. So the original ordinance had the process reversed. You went to the planning board first, and then the council issued the license. So because the review of the license has to do with financial ability and the questions that the council would ask in selecting the license, what we really did was switch the sequence. So the license has to be provided first. We go through the review, we make a recommendation to you on an administrative level, and all of those particular questions are done as part of the site review at the planning board.
So then would it be fair to say that normally council would have input on things like having restricted use, like the mayor mentioned before, whereas now we will not?
No, normally what happens with that kind of use, with use issues, is handled at the planning board currently. The council would not do that now in any of the conditional uses that we have. So now it's it mirrors what we do normally with other applications.
For every other business?
Right.
Councilman, has your question been fully answered?
Yes.
Right, so just to clarify that further, it allows the council to select which license holder they want to operate a particular business out of a location, rather than the planning board first saying, yeah, you can use this location before the council is designated who should be operating out of it. So that's the purpose of the revision to this. But this was something that the state of New Jersey in the year 2020, I think it was August of 2020, Mr. Kuchia.
August the 18th.
Of course, in what was still, part of the COVID era, said that by August, every municipality has to pass an ordinance either permitting or prohibiting specific licenses in their municipality. Otherwise, they're all permitted. So if you didn't do it by a certain date, you were automatically permitted to have all class licenses in Little Falls. So at the time, and again, it was kind of breaking ground. There weren't exactly a lot of other towns to look at because everybody was doing it at or about the exact same time. And that's really what the now, upon review, the revision to the ordinance really entails.
Just, sorry, Council President, can I
That's
just
okay.
follow up?
For Councilman Patel, go ahead.
So just so I'm clear, if this ordinance was to be passed as it's now written,
We are talking about 1468, is that correct?
correct,
Okay, good.
the applicant would first come to council for a vote,
I'm
or it's
so-
just going to the township clerk?
The license is filed with the township clerk and the review is done administratively. And then we make a recommendation to you, similar like we process the budget.
Mhm.
It's done administratively and we'll make a recommendation to the council and then the council can look at the detail, the documents. And then you either agree with us or don't agree with us.
But so just so I'm clear, there's no formal vote.
Yes, there'd be a
There is,
resolution.
okay.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Be a
So,
resolution
why don't-
selecting.
Why don't we run, excuse me, why don't we run through a scenario, Councilman Patel? Give us a scenario and like what you're thinking, because I think you're feeling that we're gonna have the powers, but you're.
No, I just wanted to clarify
Uh,
because I didn't know how, I mean, it wasn't done before, obviously.
Council President, I can run the scenario for you.
Got it.
Okay, someone who wants to be the selected licensee sends a license and an application fee to the clerk.
Mhm.
The clerk turns it over to the administration where we review. We do an evaluation based upon the application, which is part of the ordinance. We make a suggestion to the council. The council gets to review, much in the same way we do the budget. And then there's a resolution where you will either agree and say, this is the licensee that we're going to select for this particular license. And if that happens, then the next step is that we send the licensee a letter saying your resolution is passed. You can now proceed to the site plan review at the planning board.
Understood.
Okay?
Thank you.
Council Wenzel, I mean,
No.
do you have anything you want to add to that? We're good?
No, I just wanted
Okay.
to clarify for the
Good.
councilwoman that there's two pieces in essence of licensing. There's a state license and then there's the municipal approval. So many of these applicants will say they have a license. That license is a state license. That means, and it's usually a conditional. It's conditional to the extent that that licensee needs to go to the municipality and get the municipal approval, which is the resolution that Mr. Cucci was talking about. So in essence, there's the council has, going back to what the mayor was saying, at that time, back in August of 2020, the Cannabis Review Commission, Regulatory Commission wasn't even in formation at that point, and they hadn't issued any regulations. Since that time, those regulations have come down. So now this, what I'll call ping pong effect between the state license and the municipal approval to then go over to the planning board is now become the process. So the council stands sort of in that secondary level, but an incredibly important level, because every cannabis operator will tell you that unless they have the municipal approval, they're dead in the water, because they're stuck in that limbo between the state license and the site plan. So they're not going to be able to go to site X and finalize anything without the municipal approval, because that site is going to say, well, we're not going to agree to anything without that municipal approval. So to the extent that I think part of your concern is does the council have an important role to play should this be enacted? The answer is yes, because without that municipal approval, you are the stopgap at that point, if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comment regarding 1468? Okay, Mayor.
All right, ordinance number 1469 is the ordinance that deals with zoning and particularly related this particular revision to what would be permitted in the B2 district and whether or not to permit a class 5 cannabis retailer license there. And that is really the only major change to this ordinance itself compared to where it previously sat, where previously class licenses 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 were permitted. This would now also permit a class 5 license in zone. And to be clear, the B2 district is everything that kind of borders along Route 46 in Little Falls.
Other questions, comments regarding 1469? The Mayor.
May I, Council President?
Absolutely. Councilman Patel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to echo Councilman Murphy's concerns. Is there a reason we're pushing for the first reading to be on today's agenda when there were conversations had about having a town hall so the residents can express their concerns, whether it be, positive feedback or actually their concerns? I think we need time to hear what those are. Because again, Councilman Murphy did say this, we had a town hall to change, to see whether or not a street should be changed, right, to a one-way street. It's my understanding that, let's say that were to pass and it wasn't working as we had imagined it would. It wouldn't be that difficult to pass another ordinance to reverse that. However, with this ordinance, reversing it is going to be much more difficult. And I feel like there hasn't been enough conversations with the residents just to get an understanding of what the residents actually want. Because at the end of the day, as their elected officials, it's our responsibility to govern and do as, you know, one, what's best for the township, but what's best for the township is also making sure that the residents have enough time to voice their concerns or, you know, their appreciation for a project like this.
Council, anything else, Councilman?
No.
Okay.
That was-
Councilman Patel, the town halls are at the pleasure of the mayor. The council doesn't have the authority to make the mayor have a town hall, so he can address the town hall issues or how he wants to use his platform for the public residents. But I do take a little issue with the words you're saying being pushed. As council president, I set the agenda, I work on the agenda, and we tried to get the agenda out on Thursday between myself and Mrs. Kraus. And then it's up to council to review it. If they have questions, to call me and their concerns. As we can see this evening, we have different issues on the agenda. And so no one's making a comment that those issues with the noise ordinance is being pushed. And also we've discussed this issue in the past, so it's not a new issue that just shows up on the agenda, right? This issue was sort of talked about and discussed on a one-to-one basis about this. So it's not being pushed by no means. And it's up to the council to decide if they'd want it or not. This tonight is for adoption. But again, nothing's being pushed. This is, I don't see that. Introduction.
Not adoption, correct.
I'm sorry, introduction. I apologize.
Well, with all due respect, Council President, we didn't get the agenda until Friday at about 5 p.m. Right, and that was the first time I became aware that it was going to be on for tonight. It was discussed that we do believe it's being put forth way earlier than necessary. I haven't heard any justification as why it needs to be put on in the end of August when many residents are away on vacation. All we're simply asking for is more time to get an understanding of what it is the residents are looking. And to compare this ordinance to a noise ordinance, I think is comparing apples and oranges, or even like broccoli and oranges, to be fair. A noise ordinance is something that's just going to control when demolition is going to occur. This is whether or not we're going to bring a cannabis retailer to our town.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding council? Mayor?
Sure, yeah. What I would say is that until we have an ordinance introduced or conversation, or able to get our foot in the door to have a real conversation about what potential is, an introduction of an ordinance does nothing. An introduction of an ordinance alone is useless. And to say that we're starting the timer on this introduction, as Councilman Murphy said, is incorrect. The only requirement by law is that if something is introduced in 1 year, if it's going to be adopted, it needs to be adopted in that same year. So if we were to push this beyond December 31st into January of 2024, an ordinance would then need to be reintroduced before it could be adopted. But introducing an ordinance by itself, if there's going to be a town hall on this issue, and I'm not shying away from a town hall on this issue at all, would allow me to go and host a town hall that says this is what is being potentially proposed. The council can then determine if this is what they want to adopt or not. An introduction alone just opens a door for additional conversation. In fact, there is typically very little conversation and public input before things are introduced. It is before adoption that real conversation, real public comment, that really there's conversations about what it is that could be changed, that could be modified, that could be adopted. So to say that this is being pushed, I think is far-fetched. I believe every council member has had an opportunities privately to ask questions about retail establishments. So to say that this is being pushed is, I think, incorrect.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Council President, if I may.
To the floor, Councilman Murphy.
So just to pigtail on what the mayor just said. So when I refer to starting the timer, it's because the second reading is set for the 28th. Is there a town hall that's set in this 2-week span for us to discuss this when the actual approval will be happening? I'm happy with something being introduced and then there being months in between to where there's a town hall or a town hall plan in that time period to where the council can hear the residents' concerns. In regard to the town hall on a one-way, nothing has been introduced on that. And so I think you can have a town hall and not introduce something. I mean, we did it. And so I think that's completely incorrect. I mean, the council, and even if I had a question, I want to hear what the residents' question is. It's not, at the end of the day, it's not any of our individual opinions on this. I want to know what the residents feel on this issue. And I don't have that ability to do that tonight. That's why I think this needs to be pushed, because I have no way of telling what the grasp is in the community if they're for this or against this. And it is a controversial topic.
And I would, I would say that I would be happy to host a town hall, a week from today, if that was everybody's pleasure, assuming that the Civic Center's open. And I'd be happy to host a town hall between now and the 28th. And if the temperature of the room is such that, there's high opposition, the council can consider what they want to do. If the temperature of the room is such that it's indifferent, the council consider what they want to do. If there's major support for it, council consider what they want to do. One issue that I have certainly found is that town halls typically tend to gather people with serious agendas, people not there for conversations. Again, I'm not opposed to them. I enjoy doing them. I'm happy to host one. But again, this is something that is certainly controversial. It is something that has been discussed in Little Falls now for 4 months. So to say that there hasn't been any time to see how people feel, you've indicated yourself that since April, you've known that this is something that may be in the pipeline here in Little Falls. So I don't think anybody's being blindsided by this here.
Correct. And at that 4 months ago, April 17th, it was discussed that council would have discussions. Council has any discussions as a group at all. And I think 2 weeks in the middle of April on that is, I'm just talking about April, August is tough. I can tell you I'm away next week. I know Councilman Patel's away the week following after that. I know a lot of people in town are away. That's why my concern right now is doing it in this 2-week span. I think that date should be pushed out.
Councilman Murphy, so, and Council Wenzel, please correct me if I'm stating something wrong. We can't have discussions as a group. That's illegal. So discussions only could be on one-on-one. My discussion with you could be on one.
We're discussing it right now.
That's correct, because we're introducing it.
Right.
But we can't have this form prior to being introduced. So we're having discussions. Prior to that, discussions can only be to one, each, what you're feeling and calling me up or if I'm speaking to you one-to-one, but we can't have a quorum before a meeting.
Which is fair.
I don't know what the
Yeah, no,
question is
sorry.
to me, but
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know.
so-
I don't know what the question is to you.
So,
The question is,
I
when we're
think
talking about discussions, when we're talking about discussions and we introduce an ordinance, we're discussing it now at this point. I think the councilman's concern is how do we discuss it prior to being introduced legally?
okay, so,
Councilman Murphy, am I not,
I'm just saying there hasn't been any discussion.
I think, let me put it this way. If you're talking about the Open Public Meetings Act, okay, that prevents a majority of council to be together to discuss a public item without due notice, okay? In general, that's a very broad statement, but yes, that's generally that. Individual council people are always free to talk to the public, talk to their individual colleague about the issue, talk to the mayor, talk to the administration. Those are not violations of the Open Public Meetings Act. So if you're talking about the Open Public Meetings Act, and that's the only thing I'm talking about, those are the standards. How the council wants to proceed to address an issue, or how the mayor and administration want to proceed to address an issue outside of that is within their purview. That's the most lawyerly answer I could come up with.
so Councilman,
That's fine.
go ahead, Councilman Murphy.
No, that's Mr. Puccio.
I'm sorry,
Can I-
Mr.
can I-
Kuchar. Oh, just hold on a second. So
if I'm-
Councilman,
If I may, Council President,
go ahead.
the ordinance for section 33, ordinance 1468 has to do with process.
Right.
We already approved the licensing of all the cannabis licenses other than retail. So I would suggest to you that that's really the process that doesn't have to go to the zoning board. The other ordinance, which is ordinance 1469, which would now allow the retail piece, has to go to the zoning board for their review. So you're going to be, on that one, you're going to be longer in the process of approving that.
Yeah, that's not what I'm not questioning that at all.
So the amendment to 33 is process, and we already have licensees who qualify under the other licenses that are already approved that want to get moving.
I fully understand that. That's not what I was
So
raising the concern on. My concern was, why can't this just be pushed out a month? All of this. I don't understand what the rush would be. My question is not in regard to procedure.
There's two very separate ordinances on tonight, though.
No, I'm
one of
fully aware
them-
of that.
Ordinance 1469 is whether or not class 5 licenses should be permitted in Little Falls. Ordinance 1468 has nothing to do with the class 5 license in particular. Ordinance 1468 has to do with the process and procedure for applicants appearing in Little Falls. So that one, again, has nothing to do with the class 5 license in the B2 zone.
I do, yeah, Mr. and Councilmember, if I do want to, when we're saying about discussion, since I've been council president, I'm always available. My phone is always on. I don't shy away from conversations from council. I engage. Matter of fact, there's been many a times where if anyone wants to call me, we'll talk about it. So I don't see where, when we're saying conversations, where that wall has been put up. As a matter of fact, Councilman Vanchery or Councilman Hablitz and yourself, have you engaged in conversations with Councilman Mattel or Councilman Murphy concerning this issue? Have they reached out or you reached out to them?
I'll go first.
Go.
Yes, Councilor Murphy and I, we talked over the weekend, just like I got a chance to connect with you as well, just.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, is it working? No. Yeah, Councilman Murphy and I had a conversation, we talked about it and just like I had some questions for you as well. I didn't get a chance to talk to Councilwoman Patel or Councilwoman Hablitz. But these are the types of things I can tell you this, being here 7 years. I mean, there's concerns, we address them. And as the mayor alluded to and council president did as well, there's times where we introduce something and it does get delayed. It's happened before. It's not like it's a new procedure. But what we're looking at right now is introducing it and then there's a conversation. I mean, look at this room right now. There's 5 people here, maybe 7, 8, not including some of the administrative folks on our end and, reporter that's on. But, you're looking at under 15 people right now. And we did have, Mayor, keep me honest, we had a town hall, is it about 3 years ago? When we had the first one where you talked about cannabis, you had hosted a town hall. Remember at the time, because really what everybody was worried about where it was going to be, and people thought it was going to be right across the street from the rec center at the time.
It was during early parts of
COVID.
COVID. So
Mhm.
yeah, probably 3 years ago.
So I mean, it is a topic that I think everyone has questions about. And because we're just looking at just introducing this at this point, to get the ball rolling, but nothing is official yet because people could come at the next meeting. There could be 100 people in this room. There could be 100 online. You just don't know. But for now, it's looking at an introduction and there's going to be further conversations.
Council President, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Murphy.
So in regard to that, I think some of the point is getting missed here. And if you're speaking about people in the room, maybe that's just because there hasn't been enough notification on that. Right? So you could look at everything a different way. And our discussion on this was that I felt that it should have been tabled. That was really the only thing that we've ever discussed on this. In regard to the town hall that took place a couple of years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't on the council at that point. The discussions began happening. There was a town hall, and then it was decided that was not going to move forward because there was concerns. That same thing could happen here. That's why I'm just requesting that we just have ample time to hear residents' concerns. You're making my point. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. There was a town hall, residents raised concerns, it was taken off. I understand that could happen now. I'm just asking for the time to be able to do that. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not even
Okay.
saying that I'm yes, I'm not saying that I'm no. I just want there to be able to be time for us to hear residents' concerns.
So Councilman Murphy, when you, hold on one second. So Councilman Murphy, when you're asking about timing wise calendar, what would be your suggestion to this governing body?
Enough time to where it's not vacation season in August. If we could push it a month, 2 months, a couple months, just so we could be able to listen and have a town hall that residents will have the opportunity when they're not away to be able to speak at.
Mayor, you wanted to make sure?
Sure, just to be clear, 3 years ago, when there was pushback to an ordinance, the way it worked was an ordinance itself was introduced. It was after introduction that residents had opportunities to review it, to read it, to provide their comments and their feedback. At which time the ordinance was rewritten and then reintroduced and subsequently adopted, which is exactly the process that I'm saying take place here tonight. That the ordinance be introduced is what I'm suggesting, that residents can then tell us how much they love this, how much they hate this, how indifferent they are about this. And this council can then decide whether or not we move forward with the ordinance as proposed, whether or not we restrict it to 2 sites on Route 46, whether or not it be eliminated altogether. And this council can then decide whether or not this ordinance as written should be introduced, whether this ordinance should be completely rewritten, or whether it should be just eliminated and not even considered. And that's what I'm suggesting be the process. Not that because something is introduced, it's automatically guaranteed that it is going to be adopted. That's not the case. That's not how it works. In fact, in the 7 years of me being mayor and the 2 years prior as a councilman, there have been probably close to 10 or 12 ordinances that have been introduced that have subsequently been modified before them actually being adopted. And we actually have to ask council if it is too much of a modification to the ordinance that it needs to be reintroduced, or if it is a minor revision to the ordinance that we can be made and just adopted as is without a reintroduction. So we do this, frequently, I will say. It's more than, 1 or 2 times that this has happened since I have been elected here in Little Falls.
Mayor, I really appreciate that. And I think that's what is key, right? You said that you've done it multiple times in the past. I'm just asking for that same treatment here. I think it's great that you involve residents. I'm just asking that we could do it on this issue as well. That's my only ask tonight.
But it's the position that it shouldn't even be introduced tonight, or that it should be introduced and then residents have an opportunity to give feedback on the ordinance as written.
Well, my concern with the introduction today is that we have it set that it's going to be the 28th for the actual adoption.
That's always the case. It can always be not adopted on that date. It would just be
Right, and that's what I'm, right, that's what I'm asking for.
And it can be tabled on that date for adoption if necessary.
Right.
I'd be
So-
fine with that.
So we hear the comments, the chair, the council president hears the comments. Now, I do set the agenda, Councilman Murphy, as you know. I listen to the comments and we'll see where we go with the next agenda if how this plays out tonight, how it moves forward. Are there any other questions?
Yes, just one, Council President.
Councilwoman Patel?
So in all fairness, though, hypothetically, the total opposite could happen when it's introduced tonight. Residents are on vacation. No one has the opportunity to speak up. So there doesn't seem to be any quote unquote pushback, and then it's set for a vote next meeting. Because legally, once it's introduced, right, you could set it, I think the mayor just said, within the same year. So once it's introduced, it could still be set for next meeting,
It could be set for the next meeting or the meeting after, or the meeting after that.
but it could still be set for the next meeting.
That is
And I
correct.
think that's what my concern is that once it is introduced, it could be set for the next meeting without there being an opportunity for the residents to speak.
So Councilwoman Patel, you're going on the record that if this ordinance was to pass this evening, that you would not like to see it at the next agenda, at the next council meeting.
Well, personally, yes, because I'm already away on vacation,
Okay.
Council President, but I think,
Who noted? Who noted? Is there any other comments regarding? Okay, the mayor, I think you're finished with your report.
I am, yes.
We'll move on to the resolutions A through I. Can I have a motion to approve resolutions A through I? Moved by Councilwoman Havelitz, second by Councilman Vanchery. This is to approve resolutions A through I. This is a roll call, correct? Yes. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Patel,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Councilmember Hablitz, Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Mrs. Kraus, can you please read ordinance 1467?
Introduction of ordinance number 1467, an ordinance entitled Ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Little Falls in the County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending the Township Code, Chapter 136 Noise,
Yeah.
with a second reading and public hearing scheduled for August 28th, 2023.
Have a motion to introduce ordinance 1467.
So
Moved by Councilwoman Patel, second by Councilwoman Hablitz. This is a roll call to introduce 1467. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Patel,
yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Councilmember Hablitz, Councilmember Vanchery,
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes, Mrs. Kraus, at this time, please read ordinance 1468.
Introduction of ordinance number 1468, an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Little Falls Administration of Government, Section 33 Cannabis, with a second reading and public hearing scheduled for August 28th, 2023.
And for the record, that date can be changed. Is that correct, Mrs. Kraus?
So once we introduce this tonight as a public hearing and adoption scheduled for August 28th, we're also going to advertise it as such, but at the August 28th meeting, it can be tabled.
Okay. Does all council members understand the process?
Yes.
Have a motion to introduce ordinance 1468.
So
Moved by Councilwoman Hablitz, second by Councilman Vanchery. This is a roll call for 1468.
Councilmember Patel,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Hablitz. Councilmember Vanchery.
yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes, Mrs. Kraus, at this time, please read ordinance 1469.
Introduction of ordinance number 1469, an ordinance entitled Ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Little Falls in the County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending the Township Code, Chapter 280, entitled Zoning, with a second reading and public hearing scheduled for August 28th, 2023.
Have a motion to introduce ordinance 1469.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Vanchery,
Second.
second by Councilman Hablitz. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Patel,
No.
Councilmember Murphy.
No.
Councilmember Hablitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery.
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Mrs. Kraus, read ordinance 1470.
Are we?
No, you pulled
No.
it.
I'm sorry,
You pulled it.
we pulled 1470. I apologize. We'll move to council reports. So we're going to move the September 25th meeting to September 26th. September 25th is Yom Kippur, so we will not hold a meeting that night. We will move to September 26th. And also, please note, we are not going to have a meeting on September 11th. That meeting has been moved to September 18th. Councilwoman Patel?
Thank you, Council President. Just a few events that the Health Department are hosting on September 14th, 2023 at the Clifton Arts Center. They're doing a stigma-free wellness fair. It's from 4 to 7. It's a free event, but you do need to register. You could do so by contacting Adriana at 201-953-3207. It's just an event essentially to help end the stigma around mental illness and addiction. Thursday, August 24th, between 5 and 7, the Health Department will be at Little Falls Public Library, handing out giveaways and providing health education on COVID-19, foodborne and tick-borne diseases. And just so everyone is still aware, they are still handing out free COVID-19 test kits. So anyone that needs some can reach out at 973-470-2039 for those. And that is all I have, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Vanchery?
Thanks, Council President. As you alluded to a few minutes ago, just changing the date of the first meeting in September from September 11th to September 18th. Thank you for doing that. The reason why, I know I mentioned it last time to you and the members of the council, we have our annual 9/11 ceremony that takes place. And, had a chance last week to confirm the time with Chief Sitchie from the fire department. And we're going to go with September 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the 9/11 memorial
just working on all the details. The communication is going out this week too via the email blast. And I'm gonna, work on pulling the program. So hopefully everybody can make it on September 11th at 6:30. Just some transportation updates from the committee. We had a meeting last week. Thanks to Officer Pinola for always being there and providing some updates to our committee, as well as some residents that have asked to come to our meetings to learn about some things. Chief Paul, I do want to say, kudos to Officer Pinola. He's really run with this program, especially now with the portal in place where residents are sharing their concerns. And, a lot of times there's that perception of speeding, and Officer Pinola is able to go in there, do what he needs to do from a getting the data via the box, and then spending some time really going through the numbers to explain, because sometimes there is that perception where you think everybody's doing 35, 40, and the reality is they are keeping within the speed limit. So, I had a chance to see that firsthand last week, where he pulled out the report, sat down with a resident that was asking if she'd come to the meeting to learn a little bit more about what we do and just find out based on the data that he pulled together. And she was really impressed with it and how thorough it was and how much data was gathered. So just really appreciate all the work he's been doing. And with that, the one thing that we had discussed at our last meeting was pulling together something that we had. It took place before COVID. We used to bring together the Little Falls Police Department as well as the Transportation Committee to invite the residents to come here to learn about, traffic and some of the things that you may not be aware of. Because, one thing that we always bring up to new members that join is, if you're in the crosswalk and you're standing on a sidewalk, does a car have to stop? And most of the time people say yes. In actuality, you have to step on the pavement. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that, our officers that are part of the committee always explain to new members, and they have that look of, I never knew that. So there's a lot of things that, we can share. I spoke with Officer Pinola. I know I talked to you briefly about it today, just pulling together a program with some slides. We're looking at some did you know type of things, handing out some materials as well, because, we're looking at September 19th at this point. We're finalizing the details. It'll probably be around 7 p.m. But with back to school coming back as well, as an opportunity to have some materials. I know Corporal Vanek's been working with AAA to gather some friendly reminders about slow down, with school buses back on the road and kids, of course, walking. So more to come on that. I'm just working on the flyer. I'm hoping to get it out this week, if not early next week, so we can start advertising that. And again, it'll be Tuesday, September 19th here at 7 p.m. I also do want to mention the Little Falls Athletic Club is having their LFAC day on September 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. So they're basically inviting all of the families that have children that are within the program to come out from 6 to 8, have some fun. There's going to be some bounce houses. There's going to be some other vendors there handing out some items, as well as I know Rosie Empanadas is going to be there as well. And what the LFAC is doing too for the members of the Champions program that we have in town, they are going to come in about a half hour, 45 minutes earlier, so that some of those kids from the Champions program could have some fun before the larger crowds come through. A few other things I just want to update on. Thanks, Mr. Cuccia, for checking with me. As most of you remember, we had secured approval via an ordinance sometime late last year about creating some blocking the box on several of our roads in town. If you go on Main Street in Montclair, you notice the big white lines where we've helped alleviate some of the traffic congestion there. I'm happy to say that the vendor that we're using for the painting is working with the DPW team to schedule a time where we could finish up the remainder of the blocking the boxes that we have per the ordinance. So looking forward to that, because I know it'll help, especially with school just around the corner, and knowing some of those hot spots are going to start to back up once we see that taking place. And then I also know too that they are working on, as we passed earlier this year via ordinance, restriping the lines that are on Main Street between Stevens and Center Avenue. Now that we changed the ordinance to eliminate the one side of the parking, it'd be great to see those lines now shift, especially after the streetscape that has been done. And thank you, Chief, as well, for putting up the reminders of no parking on the one side that where the ordinance was changed, because some people were forgetting that it was changed, and it's good to see that now they are leaving that lane open, so it allows for the traffic to flow through. I know one other thing I wanted to mention, something that I cannot wait to happen, because it's been a long process. It's bringing this traffic light that we've been working on from a transportation committee standpoint, as well as the Little Falls Police Department, to Cedar Grove Road and Francisco. It's finally moving to the point where, we're getting results and the engineers have pulled all the information that was required from a county standpoint. We've met that criteria. And now we're just waiting for PSE&G to install the electric drops. And then the next steps, Mr. Kuchar, would be that we would put this out for bid. And hopefully from there, we'll get a date and time of when this light will be installed. This has been a 2+ year journey. I cannot wait for this to happen. I may even drive over there and crack a bottle of champagne on the light if I have to, but it's a long time coming, especially because since 2018, we've seen close to 100 accidents in that particular spot. And I know there's some people online that will remind me every time there is an accident at that particular location. So I'm really excited about this finally getting closer to the finish line. And I look forward to PSE&G moving the needle and hopefully getting done what they need to do so that our team can do what's next. And that's it. And then, Mayor, I just had one question for you with the traffic light at Stevens in Maine with the streetscape. I know a lot of things are moving, forward with the next stages. Is there an ETA on that change to the light as well?
Originally, the ETA of the light delivery and installation was November.
Mhm.
I don't know, I haven't spoken to the contractor in about a month now. But the last we had spoken, the ETA was November. So I haven't heard anything about it being pushed back, but I haven't heard anything about it being delivered anytime soon either. So November is the last that I've heard as of now.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me, Council President.
Councilman Havelitz.
Thank you, Council President. Just a few library updates. This Wednesday, they are having their Yarn Lovers program. It is the first and third, Tuesday. The first and third Tuesdays of each month. So that is tomorrow from 10 to 12 p.m. They will also have it on August 29th, September 5th, and September 19th. You just need to bring your own yarn and tools and enjoy with a bunch of people who love crocheting and knitting. They're also having this Wednesday, the 16th, they're having the drive-in bingo. You'll park your car across the street from the library. Space is limited for that one, so you do have to register on the library's website. That's always a fun event for the kids. And lastly, an exciting event for all of you Golden Girls fans. This Friday, a Facebook Live interview with the author of Golden Girls Forever, Jim Colucci, is at 5:30 p.m. So you can just go on the library website, on the Facebook page and log in, and you'll be able to see that interview. That's all I have. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Murphy.
Thank you, Council President. So just a couple quick updates on the Domestic Violence Prevention Committee. One of the next events that we're going to be at will be the August 20th Farmers Market. So we'll have our booth there. It'll be there from 9 to 1 p.m. So anybody that wants to check us out, you'll be able to come then. Another quick update at the July 4th Street Fair. We were actually approached by a Cedar Grove resident who was a Passaic County prosecutor, and she had offered some insight to the members that were there, as well as myself, and we kind of connected. She gave me her cell phone. We had a great conversation and let us know that the county offers some really great programs and presentations that they could offer. And so we kind of brainstormed on it a little bit. And one of the areas that she thought would be great would be to see if we could do it at Passaic Valley High School and do a presentation for the students, teachers, open it up to any residents that want to come. And it really was a great call that we had. And so I was able to speak with the Passaic Valley High School superintendent. He was very receptive to the idea. He thought it was a fantastic idea. So he's up to it. So right now we're working on getting some dates. So we're looking at October, obviously, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we would like to do it in October. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It'll be a great event. The county prosecutor's office has some awesome programs in regard to domestic violence prevention. They even have some for elder abuse, which I will speak to Council President Scoba about. Maybe we could do something with the seniors. They really have some awesome things that they offer for us. So I'm glad that she came over to our booth because it was a great coincidence for her to be there and learning for all of us that these programs are available. So keep an eye out for that. I'm very excited on that. So thanks, Council President. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah. Domestic violence, we all just think about it as unfortunately a female with a black eye, and that domestic violence is surely a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah.
And as you mentioned about the seniors, unfortunately, there's situations where seniors have domestic violence and even with their own children. So it's good that we include them in and give them as much information as we can. The chief, before I ask you to report, You did present this council with an ordinance on licensing entertainment activities. Maybe we can come up with a new name in the near future with that. And myself and Councilman Murphy will be scheduling a time with you to go over that proposed ordinance. It's a quite in-depth ordinance, one that's, I think, has come to time where this township has to take a look at that to give your staff the rights to keep our community, I would say, to keep our community in a place where at least the officers aren't called with a nuisance call. I think that's what we're trying to get at, right? So that, and then they also have the authority to control an incident if it gets out of hand or not abiding by what this ordinance may come forth with. The Oktoberfest is going to be sometime in October. That's the senior advisory program. It's going to be probably the last program we do. That'll be held in the fall. More on that to come later next month. The Banner of Heroes program is going well. Thank you, Mr. Controller, for leading that. We do have, sir, right, about 9 photos out of those veterans.
Yes, sir.
So we're off to a pretty good start. But I think at the next meeting, we will list all the veterans of those that we have photos for and those that we don't have photos that we're looking for. Maybe it would spark some attention and someone may have a photo of one of those veterans because we really want to get photos of all those deceased veterans who fought for our country. Chief?
I just have a couple things, I guess. I submitted our July report. I'm happy to report that traffic enforcement is up department-wide. Hopefully, our complaints are a little bit less. I guess that's one thing that I'm seeing. The complaint portal and working with the assistant business administrator. I guess I would recommend to the public that if it's something that you're observing, the best course of action is to call the police desk and not wait until the next morning to put it through the complaint portal. Again, we're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Someone will answer the phone and we can dispatch a police officer to deal with whatever problem you're observing right then and there. So that would be, what I would recommend. We're gearing up for, the start of school. So look forward, on our social media. If you don't follow us already, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. We're going to be putting things out for, pedestrian safety and gearing up for the start of school. So everybody have a safe summer.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Have a motion open for the public for agenda items only.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Murphy, second by Councilman Vanchery, voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Kraus.
Anyone wishing to address the Township Council may do so to the Council President. It is preferred if you give your name and address for the record. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. However, if appropriate, you may be granted additional time in the sole discretion of the Council President. Members of the public who have joined the meeting virtually and desire to provide comment shall raise their virtual hand in the Zoom application. The meeting moderator will cue the members of the public that wish to provide comment, and the Council President will recognize them in order. Members of the public who have joined the meeting by calling in must press *6 to mute and unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. Members of the public who have joined the meeting via the Zoom application must click the reactions icon and then the raise hand icon. Once the process is complete, we will return to the regular order of business.
Thank you. The floor is now open. Mr. Kusia?
Jackson.
Anyone in our council chambers like to come forth? Seeing no one, you have a motion to close the public? Moved by Councilwoman Patel
Second.
and second by Councilman Vanchery. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I want to thank the staff for helping to assist put on this meeting. Have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Murphy, second by Councilwoman Havelitz. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. This meeting is now closed.